Well, greetings. Happy Monday evening, everyone. Welcome to the program. I'm Scotty Roberts. Well, this isn't the program yet. This is the pre-show. Just making sure we're all set up. And of course, I have to do that because we were all unplugged for the weekend. Let me turn that off. I'm getting feedback from that. And there we go. Those of you who follow my social media, Rainey and I went to an art show locally. It was held at at the big Catholic church here in town, and she was doing her tumblers like these. There's my Celtic Pride tumbler. We did Celtic Pride a couple of years ago when she first came out with these. It's hard to see with the light shining on it, but there you go, Celtic Pride. But she did all her different tumblers. I brought the whole computer system down, and we did custom designs for people. They had like pictures of their puppy on their phone that died or something. And I said, yeah, email it to me right now. And so they emailed it to me, and I'd take it and I'd drop out the background, drop it onto a nice background, or do things like that. And we printed up the art right there and imprinted people's tumblers. So Rainey had a pretty good day with that, and I was busy all day Saturday and Sunday doing that with her. So that was a lot of fun. That's why we did not do a Sunday show yesterday. We had to be there between 8 and 8:30 yesterday because they wanted the whole show set up on Sunday for in between masses, the early mass and the late mass. And then it was busy all day. So it was nice. And it was busy on Saturday too. So that's where we've been. And that's why I just had to double check my settings for sure, because everything was unplugged and I had to redo everything. And we've got 1 minute left and we go live over on the radio station. If you don't know what that is, you can listen to the radio, and it's just audio format only over there. And that is odysseyradio.com. ODYSY radio.com. You can watch on my YouTube. You can watch on my Facebook. You can watch on Odyssey Radio's Facebook, and also I think over on their YouTube as well. The YouTube is where you get the best chat room. So if you want to join the chat room, if you're just listening, well, if you're on the radio, you aren't hearing us yet. We start at 9:03, which is in about 20 seconds. So we're going to go dark, and we will be back in just a few minutes. Sit tight.
Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey folks, welcome to the program tonight. Happy Monday. I am your host, Scotty Roberts. This is my show, the Intrepid radio program, coming to you live over on Odyssey Radio. That's ODYSY radio.com. Go on over. You can listen to just the audio version of this show, or join us on the YouTube channel to join the chat room and see the video simulcast. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And if you are not a member of my channel, you can hit the little join button down below my YouTube window, and that allows you to become a member of this channel. You can join for free, or you can also see 3 different ways you can help support the show. All fairly inexpensive. I think they range from $5 to $10 to $15 a month is what you can sign up for, or any other figure you want. And you can go over to my Patreon page if you want to support this show in other ways. That starts at $4 a month. The only reason we're asking for money, nobody pays us to do this. And we give you 3 shows a week most weeks. There's some weeks where I've got a night off or whatever. And so you get, what is that, about 12 shows a month for that, and any special things we're doing. So come on over, be a member, help support the show, and help us do better and cooler things for you. So thanks for being here tonight. We're going to talk about something You notice the little joke in the title that we've all heard so many times. The three magi, who were those kings from Orientar? Remember the song when you were a kid? You had no idea what that meant. We three kings of Orientar, bearing gifts we traverse so far, and yada yada yada. So, who the heck are the three kings from Orientar? Hey Sam, my son is in the room. He says, good evening, everyone. Leslie Holker is here. Good to see you, Leslie. Elderberry is here, and Susie Q is here. Randall Flagg is here. Everybody's starting to line up. Nice to see you here. Glad you're. I thought I saw Grumpy Stack. I might be mistaken. I don't see him yet. So everybody who's coming in, welcome. And those of you who are here but aren't in the chat room, come on into the chat room. If you haven't been here before, I think you'll enjoy it. And so, what about these three kings, and why is it important? To me, it's important because we're shedding light. I've always said about history that history cracks open the door and shines some light on these old stories that we've always heard, and we've relegated them to the realm of Bible stories. And maybe to some people it's not important at all because you don't have a Bible faith or you don't follow one of the Abrahamic religions, and that's your thing. You do what you need to do. But if you follow one of these, it's always and the traditions that are out there, I think it's always nice to have a little history to back up what it is we're talking about. There are some men that generally in the last 200 years have gone out trying to find out if biblical stories are true archaeologically. And they've gone out and done the historical research, they do the archaeology, and they end up finding that there's been over, well, at least as of 50 years ago, when it was written 50 years ago, there were at least 1,500 different historical points of the Bible, Old and New Testament, that have been proven to be true by archaeological evidence. And I think that's really cool. It really, hey, Chad, because it gives us an understanding that what we're reading isn't just made up. I see people who are, and it drives me nuts because I'm kind of, what would you call me? I've got two sides of my coin here. One side is I don't buy everything about the Bible faith-wise like I used to. I disagree with some things. I have a problem with some passages. I have a problem with too much of biblical teaching seems to look like the same kind of stuff that men wrote about every other religion that's out there. So either every religion is right or everyone is wrong or everybody's picking and choosing. There are things about God that I said that does not seem to fit into the attributes of a loving or a holy God. All the things we learn about him, and it looks like stuff guys would write, and God commanded them to go and wipe out the entire village, every man, woman, child, baby, goat, dog, cat, whatever was there. And I said, that does not sound like a holy God. That sounds like the guys that were, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition. That's what it sounds like. So that's one side of my coin, is that I have problems with certain faith stories. I have problems with the way things are written in the Bible. The other side is when I see somebody criticizing it and saying, oh, it's all a bunch of fables and a bunch of fairy tales. Gets my hackles up. Why? Is it because I believe it all? No, it's because I say, no, you are absolutely wrong. You are saying that out of your angst over not wanting to follow mom and dad's Presbyterianism or whatever it might be, and you want to do something else and you want to claim it's not. Anybody who is a thinking person would know if they apply critical thinking to the Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Quran, any of these that have faith mixed with history, they're going to find out that it's not all fables. It's not all fairy tales. So there's my two signs or sides of my coin, is that I will stand against it when I have a problem with it. I will stand for it when somebody tries to in a banal fashion, stupidly criticize it. Then I'll stand for it. And as I've mentioned this story many, many times, one of the things that really drove me to seek more into biblical archaeology was when I first heard the story of the cornerstone of Pontius Pilate. And I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to give a long story, but just in quick recap, Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor over Judea during the trial of Jesus, the crucifixion, and all of that. For centuries, he was said to be, he's part of the Jesus myth, because there's no physical, hard evidence that the man ever existed outside of a biblical tale. Until that is 1964. That's only 60 years ago. They were working in Caesarea Philippi, the former Roman capital of Judea, and they were uncovering some old buildings, and they were doing something, looking for something else completely different. And there was an old stairway that was built out of old reused stone in antiquity. So this was done 1,000 or more years ago. This stairway was built, and part of the stairway was this stone that was the cornerstone of Pilate. They found it, and they saw on one side it had an inscription that talked about Pontius Pilatus Praefectus Judea, and he's dedicating a gymnasium, naming it for Tiberius Caesar, called it the Tiberium, and it would have fallen within the 26 years or so I'm sorry, not 26, this 5 or 6 years that he was the Roman governor in Judea, the prefect. And so, I'm all shook up, hey, Elvis is in the building, and Elderberry is singing for him. And so that's over in the chat room, folks. You don't know what you're missing. And so these are the reasons why I like history. I love history when it sheds light. You want to see a good YouTube series? Now, the man is very evangelical, very Christian, but he's an archaeologist. He wrote a book, and I've mentioned it before, a book called, I think it's called When God Came Down. And it's full of illustrations and so on, all the different things that you got a bunch of videos of different topics in the Bible that he's looked at, and he travels to those sites. He's an American, a white dude from America, middle-aged, and he relocated to Jerusalem many years ago to do his work. And his series, I think it's called Exploring the Bible. It's something that simple. If I were to look it up, and I can't even think of his name off the top of my head, but I love his series because, in context to what we're talking about tonight, he digs into the history of the Bible, and frankly, he really uncovers some things, goes into Scripture, compares what he's looking at to Scripture and how it fits to the rulers, how it fits to the people involved, the sites, and so on. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can find it. Exploring, and it doesn't come up just like that. You'll have to look for it. I think it's called Exploring the Scripture or something like that. Exploring the Bible, something like that. And his stuff is really well done. And his book, you can find that on Amazon, When God Came Down. I think that's what it's called. It's a book, Where God Came Down. That's it. Where God Came Down. Location, Where God Came Down, by Joel P. Kramer. And Archaeological Evidence. Where God Came Down, the Archaeological Evidence. Yeah, you should pick up that book. It's $20 right now, which is pretty good. It's a big coffee table book full of it. It's a bestseller, and it's gone off the charts for a few years. So it's good stuff. Anyway, all of that to say, if you are interested in exploring biblical topics, and we need to make me bigger. Oh, sorry, guys. I still got the thing up there. Let me remove that. Boom, I'm bigger. Sorry about that. When I have the show banner up, I sometimes forget to put up all my other junk and make myself bigger. So now I'm bigger. There you go, Leslie. Thank you. So all of you, if you are interested at all in things of faith, of religion, the Abrahamic religions, studying history around them is really beneficial to understanding what you're reading. There is context that's given, like the cornerstone of Pilate. That's something that was found that was extra biblical, but it proved that the man existed archaeologically. Things like that are amazing to me. And it's even more amazing when I start finding information that really backs up the things I either currently believe or said I believe, what it does do, whether I believe the particular element of faith or not. It's something I've always believed. It's something that supports the historicity of a book of faith. Now, the faith elements, I've always said you can take them or leave them. That's your choice. But the history you can't discard. The Bible is filled to the brim with efficacious history. It's so much so that you'd have to ask the question, is it a historical book that teaches religion? Or is it a book of faith stories wrapped around actual historical accounts? I think it's both. So, in talking about the Magi tonight, since it's the Christmas season, Russ Hasselage, who owns the radio station, he posed a question to me the other day. He was asking, not that he didn't know the answer, he'd already heard a lot of this stuff. He was asking what I believed about when the Magi came to visit Jesus. We always see the little nativity scenes that get set up. You might have one at home that's set up in your window, little collectible nativity scenes. Or at the local Lutheran or Catholic church, they have one set up at Christmas time. And there's always the three Magi, the three wise men, the three kings of ORIANTAR. And of course, we always have, what's ORIANTAR? Well, we three kings from Orient are traveling so far, blah, blah, blah. We all know that. But as a kid, we didn't know history at all. We didn't know what that was. What's ORIANTAR? So the Magi, as they're called, the magicians, the star seekers, they're called in one version of the New Testament that was updated, some of the language, because the Magi really refers to the astrological nature of their study and research. That's who these guys are. But the Magi lend an exotic and mysterious air to the Christmas story. And it's the sweet domesticity of mother and child and the bucolic atmosphere of shepherds and the stable. They're all disturbed by the arrival of these strangers from the East. And the background music changes from major to minor. The old Arabic type of music you see in the movies. 1001 Nights is invoked in the mind. But the sentiment gives way to awe, perhaps even fear. Nevertheless, perhaps because of this, the legend of the Magi has fired the imagination of Christians and followers of Christmas since the earliest times. In art, the adoration of the Magi appeared earlier and far more frequently than any other scene of Jesus' birth and infancy. There's a painting of the three Magi above a Roman archway in a building that dates back to the 3rd century, which is within 300 to 350 years of the time of Jesus. And you've got these guys who are already being depicted. And the artistic evidence suggests that the early church attributed great theological importance to the story of Jesus' first visitors. It's an importance not overtly stated in this enigmatic gospel account of omens and dreams and astrological signs and precious gifts and fear and flight. Look at all those things that are involved in that story. The story of Christmas. It's a mysterious, spiritual, metaphysical story. And to understand how the earliest Christians interpreted the message of the Magi, we have to look to early Christian literature, theological treatises, sermons, poetry, and even art. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who's been born King of the Jews? For we have observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage," or homage, if you wish. And now this is out of Matthew 2, verse 1. Listen to that again. Listen to how it's worded. This will answer any question. We could stop even talking about this. When did the Magi arrive? Did they arrive at the manger scene? I don't think it's important either way, but the question comes up, when did they get there? It says in that verse, in the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where's this child who's been born King of the Jews?" So that opens the second chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. And by the way, Matthew, let's just be polite and call it the book of Matthew. There's so much about the book of Matthew that shows that it's come from several different sources. The Gospel of Mark being one of the initial sources, as well as lots of editing. And I don't mean that kind of editing where people go, "Oh, the Bible's been edited so many times, you can't rely on it." Not true. Some of these, like the book of Matthew, you can find that going all the way back into the 2nd century, where they're already finding writings that copies of the book that are hardly changed from what we see today. However, it had been edited throughout that 1st century after it was written, several different things added. You can find that. You can research the book and study it. But the only biblical account of this nocturnal visit of the Magi appears in Matthew. And in vivid contrast to Luke, who was a physician and an historian, you look at the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts were written by Luke. He was an historian. Matthew omits any mention of Mary and Joseph's trip to Bethlehem to be registered. He doesn't mention the crowded inn. He doesn't mention a sheltering manger or watching shepherds startled by the angel's announcement of the Messiah's birth. Instead, the first Gospel of Matthew focuses on the journey of these Eastern emissaries who see an unusual star rising. And they interpret it as an omen that they should investigate, and they follow its path first to King Herod of Judea and then to Bethlehem, where it appears to stop above a house in which a child had recently been born. Now, entering the house, the men pay homage to the baby, and they offer him gifts, gold, frankincense, myrrh. And then they leave, having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, who was hatching an evil plot that will lead to the slaughter of innocent children and the weeping of their mothers. So these guys went to visit based on seeing the star. Now, some said, how did they even know to look for this? What does that mean? How did they know that a star shining in the east, meaning they weren't looking east, they were in the east. The star shining in the east told them that the Messiah was being. Why did they think this? Well, remember, Israel was kept in captivity in Babylon about 500 years earlier. And if you think that Israel's presence in Babylon did not leave a mark, not leave literature, not leave people wondering things, these astrologers, they may not have been adhering to any particular god, but they were certainly adhering to astrological signs and sciences. So the earliest extant portrayal of the Magi was from the Catacomb of Priscilla. That's where you see the painting of the three. And it appears above an arch in the Catacomb of Priscilla in Rome. And it comes from the 3rd century. As in almost all the early images of the Magi, they are shown as three men, identical in size and dress, although the color of their clothing varies in the catacomb paintings, and race. And each carries a gift, and it's difficult to discern the presence in the faded catacomb painting. But usually in the art, one of them carries a wreath, the other carries a bowl, a jug, or a box-shaped object. And the Magi advance in a line toward the child seated on his mother's lap. And in many images, they appear to point or gaze at a star overhead. The star brought us here. And sometimes their camels appear behind them, as in a 4th century sarcophagus relief in the Vatican museums. The early images almost always appear in funerary settings, on catacomb walls, and sarcophagi. And the Magi scene is among the first narrative images to appear in Christian art. You get that? That's kind of interesting all by itself. Christian art as it evolved in the earliest centuries, 2nd to 3rd centuries, Roman art, and some of the first images were the Magi visiting the baby Jesus. Another early one was a Roman one showing a beardless Jesus with a magic wand performing miracles. He was raising Lazarus from the dead, and he had a magic wand. That was from like the 200s, something like that, within 150 years of the life of Jesus. So the New Testament scenes, as well as any other representation of Jesus' nativity, of Balaam and of the Virgin with child, and the Catacomb of Priscilla may be the exception. And the complex composition, emphasis on the narrative detail, this provides all kinds of further evidence for the import of the story held. It was an important story. So by the 5th century, Christian art, the 500, we're talking 5th century, the 400s, the Christian art had spread from catacombs and sarcophagi to vast public spaces. The Magi began to appear in the mosaic decorations of the first great basilicas. These mosaics share the same basic composition seen in earlier funerary art. And in a 6th century, in the 500s mosaic from the church of Saint Apollinaire Nuovo in Ravenna, Italy, for example, the Magi appear as extravagantly dressed triplets, bearing their gifts in fluted vessels as they press forward, gazing up at the star. And before them, the baby Jesus is seated on Mary's lap, flanked by angels. And by the way, this whole thing of them always shown on camels and things like that, keep in mind, these guys are, and we're going to get into it as we get down the way here. These guys were from more than likely Babylon or the environs of Babylon. And they were astrologers. And camels weren't the big thing for travel from Babylon. They were more than likely, guess what? Riding Arabian horses. So that's why if you look at the graphic for tonight's show, I have them riding Arabian horses. So the Magi of Ravenna mosaic may be distinguished only by their hair. One is long brown hair and a beard, one is clean shaven youth, the third is an elderly man, and his hair is graying. And their names, most likely a later addition, they're never found in scripture anywhere, are inscribed above them: Balthazar, Melchior, and Gaspar, often spelled Casper. Casper, the friendly Magi. Now, neither their names, their numbers, 3, their physical descriptions, nor the date of the Magi's arrival appears in the Bible. And over time, these cherished traditions were added to the brief gospel narrative, probably first through oral tradition. And by the 4th century, the Magi's arrival was celebrated as the Feast of Epiphany on January 6th. Oh, 1/6, Jan 6, 12 days after Jesus' birth on December 25th by the tradition of the church. Now, their assumed number was undoubtedly derived from the 3 gifts presented to Jesus in Matthew. The number wasn't always taken for granted. However, a wall painting in the Rome catacomb of Domitilla shows 4 Magi. One in the catacomb of Peter and Marcellinus depicts 2. And so there's a variety of Syrian documents that name 12 Magi. So remember, these guys, some were just 3 guys who set out riding their horses through the sand for a couple of months. It was probably a whole caravan, because they were going to seek out a king and bring him gifts. So now the names and the nationalities of the Magi also varied throughout the world, especially in the East. An Armenian infancy gospel from about 500 lists them as Melkon, king of Persia, Gaspar, king of India, and Baldassar, king of Arabia. And it's thus closest to Melchior, Casper, and Gaspar, and Balthasar of the medieval Latin church. So as this Armenian infancy gospel indicates, the Magi, a Greek term that might be taken as sages or astrologers, maybe even priests, had come to be identified with royalty. And in 490, the Byzantine Empire, Zeno claimed to discover the remains of these kings somewhere in Persia, brought them to Constantinople. Well, they were probably all buried together, according to them. How handy. And so the relics eventually reached the West during the Crusades, the first traveling to Milan and then subsequently to Cologne by Frederick Barbarossa in 1164. Today, they reside in Cologne in a magnificent reliquary shrine built for them in the late 12th century. And they're known to pilgrims and tourists as the Three Kings of Cologne. And sorry, I was going to make a sad joke about that's where Brute, Old Spice, King Brute, King Old Spice, and King High Karate came from. Anyway, it took centuries for these traditions to develop. However, in one of the earliest extra-biblical accounts of their journey, the apocryphal infancy gospel, known as the Protovangelium of James, the Magi remain unnamed and unnumbered. And this text, which was probably composed in Syria in about the mid-2nd century, only expands slightly on Matthew by describing the place where Jesus was born as a cave rather than a house. And this detail will be familiar to modern pilgrims to Bethlehem, who've been ushered into a small cave beneath the Church of the Nativity, where tradition locates Jesus' birth, and which is probably more accurate than you might think, even though there's a huge church built on top of it. So the Protovangelium also elaborates on the appearance of the star. The Magi tell Herod that all the other stars dimmed in comparison. So it wasn't something that already existed, meaning, oh, they were just seeing the North Star. No, because they said it was brighter than anything else. So there's a lot of theories on what the star was. And so the early church fathers interpreted the Magi story in light of the Old Testament prophecy. Christians understood the Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures, the Septuagint, or Septuaginta, if you prefer, to be a sacred text that contained types and figures pointing to the coming of Jesus as Messiah. Now, Justin Martyr, who died in 165 AD, in his dialogue with a Jew named Trypho, he interprets the Magi as the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecy regarding the coming of the Messiah. Justin cites Isaiah 8:4, where the prophet predicts that before the child knows how to call my father or my mother, the wealth of Damascus and the spoils of Samaria will be carried away by the king of Assyria. So for Justin Martyr, the Magi were priests of an Eastern cult and practitioners of a magic and astrology. And the wealth of Damascus and the spoils of Samaria represented the sorcery, the idol worship that the pagan Magi gave up when they worshiped Jesus. Now, it's interesting. I never saw anything in the biblical scriptures that say they changed their religion and they began worshiping him. They said they wanted to find him and pay homage to him as a king that is born in Jerusalem. So the Magi's visit to the crib was pretty much their moment of conversion, according to this, and the renunciation of their misguided, idolatrous practices, according to Justin Martyr. And so Justin reads Matthew's story as a sign to the world that Christianity was the true, the one pure faith. Of course, Justin Martyr, we've talked about him many times before. He came up with some pretty wacky things at times. There's some things I'd like to talk about, but I'll rabbit trail myself, so I won't. But Justin Martyr, he was an apologist for early Christianity. That's about as early as it gets. 165, 64 is when he died. So writing from Carthage, a generation after Justin, the apostolic father Tertullian expanded on Justin's arguments. He suggested that the Magi's dream, instructing them to go home by another route, was not only to be misunderstood or understood literally, but as an admonition to forsake their former idolatrous habits and practices. Go home by another way. Well, what does that mean? That means give up your past religious experiences and adhere to. I don't think it meant that at all. But this is how these church fathers in the early centuries were interpreting this. Now, maybe they were smarter than me and they know better, but I don't know. I've seen some pretty wild things that these guys came up with. So the popular interpretation is reflected in art, which often links the three magi with the three Hebrew youths in the fiery furnace in Daniel 3, and with Daniel in the lion's den in Daniel 6. And all Easterners, Daniel and the Hebrew youths lived in the Persian court during the captivity of Israel in Babylon. And they used their gifts of prophecy, dream interpretation, and perhaps even magic to resist the evil of pagan idolatry. Just think of that. Think of all the magic, all the dream interpretation, all the things that we look at now as being pagan things. These were all things that the Hebrews practiced and which saved some of their lives in the biblical writ during the captivity years. So first, the Magi, like the three youths, are usually garbed in the clothing that Romans associated with Persians and other Easterners. Short, belted tunics, cloaks pinned at the shoulder, soft pointed boots, and the peaked caps. And second, there were images of the Magi that are often paired with the three youths of Daniel, as in the 4th century catacomb of Marcus and Marcellinus in Rome, where paintings of the Magi and the three youths are grouped together. So in at least one image, the three youths from Daniel and the Magi are conflated. On a 4th century sarcophagus relief from St. Giles, France, three men in Eastern dress turn away from an idol toward a star. And you can look that up. It's the sarcophagus of Cretians, de la Gaule. And you can see that if you care to look that up. So the Magi's special role as witnesses to the true faith was also noticed by the church father Origen, who read the Magi's stories in light of the prophecies of Balaam. Remember Balaam and his talking mule. And according to Origen, after the star appeared to the Magi, they noticed that their magic spells faltered and their power was sapped. That was according to the church father. You don't find that written in scripture anywhere. That their magic spells faltered and their power was sapped. Doesn't say that anywhere. So consulting their books, they discovered the prophecy of the oracle reader Balaam, who saw a rising star coming out of Jacob. And there's that prophecy. He was hired by, I can't remember the king's name, an Assyrian king, to stand on the mountain overlooking the valley where the Israelites had come in. It was during the conquest of the land of Canaan, pre-nation of Israel, post-Exodus. And he was going to pronounce this curse on them for pay for this king. And suddenly, and as he's going, he keeps getting stopped and his mule won't move. And he starts whipping his mule. And then his mule opens his mouth and talks to him. He says, "Why are you beating me? I'm pretty much saving your ass, dude." And an ass saving his ass. How about that? Because then appears an angel with a sword, a fiery sword that's going to take out Balaam for the curse he's going to lay. And so Balaam converts and he gives a blessing instead to Israel from the mountaintop. And that's, by the way, that's one of those episodes on YouTube of exploring the Bible or evidence of the Bible or something like that, whatever it's called. He goes through all the maps and shows where these places were and where they took, because they're all named in the scripture. So this makes it very interesting and pertinent. So, but he talks about a star that rises out of Jacob, Jacob being another name for Israel, that indicated the advent of the great ruler of Israel. This is in Numbers 24:17, if you want to see the passage. So the Magi thus conjectured that this ruler had entered the world. So the Magi traveled to Judea to find this ruler. And based on their reading of Balaam's prophecy, the appearance of the comet and their loss of strength, they determined that he must be superior to any ordinary human. And their loss of strength, I don't see written anywhere. But that his nature must be both human and divine. And the Magi for Origen were not simply Jesus' first visitors, but the first to recognize Jesus as Messiah. That's interesting. That's a spiritual belief, not an astrological one, that Origen places on the Magi. So whether or not Matthew intended to link Balaam's star with the Magi, the early church certainly did. And Balaam's figure may be barely discerned behind Mary and Jesus in the painting that you find at the Catacomb of Priscilla. He's there on the painting of the adoration from the Catacomb of Priscilla. He also appears on the 4th century funerary epitaph of a woman named Severa, where Balaam stands behind Mary, pointing at the star. Look, a star, as the Magi approach. And nowhere do you see this in the scriptural story. It's something that's extrapolated. So by the 3rd century, biblical interpreters were finding echoes of Psalm 72 in the narrative of the 3 gift-bearing visitors. Now, keep in mind, you see the progression, how it evolves from being this thing. Oh, now it's this. Oh, now we're expanding into this. Now we're finding that it meets this prophecy, and so on. And it says, may the kings of Tarshish and the isles render him tribute. May the kings of Sheba and Sheba bearing gifts. May all kings fall down before him. May all nations serve him. That's Psalm 72. And the Magi were identified as these kings of all nations who worshiped the Christian Messiah, bowing down to give him homage. They became a potent sign that Christ's salvation was predicated and open to the whole world. The rising of the new star marked the coming of the new age envisioned in the Old Testament. Some have even contended that it marked the beginnings of anti-Semitism in Christianity, because it was saying those dumb Jews, they don't get it. We Gentiles do. Which was rampant among early church fathers in the early centuries, by the way. They could be treasure hunters, said Sarah. Camels are better for long distance travel than horses. Very true. So the passage from Psalms cemented the Magi's identification as kings, and it led to a fresh understanding of their origins. And the earliest writers had understood that the Magi came from one region usually identified as Persia. But in the 8th century, the Anglo-Saxon historian, theologian known as the Venerable Bede, or Bede, B-E-D-E, I think it's Bede, recorded a later tradition that the 3 Magi signified the 3 parts of the world. So they were symbolic, he's saying, Africa, Asia, and Europe, and that they thus might be linked with the sons of Noah, who fathered the 3 races of the earth in Genesis 10. So this development is also reflected in art. In the earliest sarcophagal reliefs, catacomb paintings, the Magi appear to be 3 of a kind, all in Eastern dress. Gradually, however, each acquires distinguishing characteristics. And as we've seen in the 6th century mosaic from Saint Apollinaire Novoa in Ravenna, the Magi are represented as being different ages, with all different color hair. And by the 14th century, one of the 3 would appear as a black man. You see this in a photo of Andrea Mantegna's Adoration of the Magi. And as kings of all nations. And the men also wear elaborate golden crowns in many of the later paintings, which again, the scripture does not say anything about. So what may be the most impressive and influential understanding of the Magi weaves together many of these interpretations that are expressed by early church fathers, that the Magi were the world's first witnesses to the Trinity. And that explains why there's 3 of them. It explains their appearance in almost all artistic images and literary traditions as 3 men, different but alike. So the 4th and now this is early church fathers stuff. This is not me teaching you this. I'm teaching you about what they were teaching in the early church. In the 4th and the 5th centuries, when many of the images of the Magi shown were made, there was a time of great theological debate. First, over the relationships of the three persons of the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and subsequently about the human and divine natures of Jesus Christ. And there is this great triune throughout the history of spirituality of humanity. Dr. Marie D. Jones and Larry Flaxman wrote a book on the divine three that we see all through history, not just Christianity. So was Christianity tying into that and linking to it, or was it part of that? So as the first visitors who recognized who the newborn child was and what his birth would mean to the whole world, the witness of the Magi was not insignificant to these controversies. Their three gifts seemed to demonstrate their prescient understanding of the three distinct persons who shared a single nature within the Trinity, as well as the different roles of the two separate but inseparable natures in the single person, the incarnate Jesus. You can see the applications being made by the early church fathers. Rather than a literal story, they were figurative of the Trinity. And so the 2nd century church father, Irenaeus, I like to sometimes call him Erroneous, of Lyon, alluded to this role of the Magi in his allegorical interpretation of the Magi's gifts. And according to Irenaeus, the Magi offered Jesus myrrh, which was, frankincense and myrrh. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh were the three gifts. He offered a myrrh, which is used for anointing corpses, to indicate that he was to die and be buried for the sake of mortal humans. Gold, because he was a king of an eternal kingdom, and frankincense, burnt on altars as divine offerings, because he was God. Pope Leo the Great, whose writings on the divine and the human nature of Jesus influenced the final formula for the Orthodox Chalcedonian Creed, and wove together the idea, which was in 451, by the way, about 100 years after the Nicene Creed, if you're up on that stuff. They wove together the ideas of Irenaeus on Jesus' nature and Justin Martyr on the renunciation of idolatry, when he emphasized that the conversion of the Magi provides proof of Jesus' twofold nature, human and divine, as well as his status as king, both Davidic and heavenly. And in addition, Leo, the Pope, hints that the journey of the Magi to Jesus could be interpreted as an allegory of the journey of the individual soul to God, as the star's light still might penetrate both the human mind and the heart, showing it the way to truth. And in his sermons on the Epiphany, Leo wrote this: "How did it come to be that these men who left their home country without having seen Jesus and had not noticed anything in his appearance to enforce such systematic adoration offered these particular gifts? Gold, frankincense, myrrh. It was the star that attracted their eyes, but the rays of truth also penetrated their hearts, so that before they started on their toilsome journey, they first understood the one who was promised was owed gold as royalty, incense as divinity, and myrrh as mortal. And so it was of great advantage to us future people that this infant should be witnessed by these wise men." And you know what? Makes a lot of sense for pictorial application and illustration of who Jesus was supposed to be. So centuries later, artists would depict what the Magi were believed to have witnessed, the Trinity made manifest at the Nativity. And the birth scene in the early 15th century manuscript known as Lettres, Riches, Huers du Duc de Berry, illuminated by the Lumberg brothers, includes God the Father in a cloud, the Spirit in the form of a descending dove, and the Son, the newborn babe, lying on a bed of hay. So gifted with power to divine oracles and read stars, the Magi recognized the child as the Messiah, as both human and divine, king and child, and intimately present and cosmically meaningful, moral and eternal. And so for the early church, the Magi themselves came to represent the Trinity, a final image of the Magi, paired on a 4th century marble sarcophagus with a scene of Jesus raising the dead, reinforces why their image appears so early and so frequently in funerary settings. In recognizing the promise of a Messiah who was both human and divine and eternal, the Magi provided a message of hope for both the living and the dead. And this is what the early church fathers and those who came after have worked very hard to um, uh, put forward as an illustration for who these 3 guys were that came and visited Jesus at his birth. But the big question of them being there at the birth is one of the questions that's asked. Russ and I were talking about that the other day, just yesterday maybe. But were these Magi? Were they there at the night of Jesus' birth? Were they there later? There is a lot of tradition that says they were there the night of. At least that's a tradition that's come down to us. Sarah says they act like they haven't met awkward teenager Jesus, whose voice was cracking. And Jesus at age 12 spoke with the rabbis in the temple. I'm not mocking it. I think it's funny. Jesus probably went through puberty too. Come on. So, there's a couple of things that I want to mention about this. That the Magi, I believe, they saw the star in the east, it says. And the Bible even says they came after the birth of Jesus. It doesn't say how long after. There is some speculation that it might have been 2 to 4 years later. But they would have had to come at the time when Herod the Great, king of Judea, the Roman puppet king of Judea, was still alive. And we're not talking Herod Antipas, who was alive during the crucifixion time of Jesus, but Herod the Great. And that the great builder, the one who you see the Western Wall in Jerusalem today, down below what was the old temple platform where now the Mosque of Omar sits. That wall where they go to pray is one of the few remaining remnants of Herod's temple. You go down even lower, you find stones that are carved differently, fit together differently, and they date back to Solomon's temple. So it's interesting stuff when you get into the archaeology. But they came, I believe, these Magi came sometime in that first couple of years, because they would have had to see the star in the east, and it says they followed it to where Jesus, and it pointed to where he lay. I think that's picturesque language. They followed that star. Did the star remain in the sky for them? Was it a comet? What was it? But they came, I believe, not the night of Jesus' birth, but later. It could have been a few days later. I doubt that they mounted an expedition that quickly and went to Judea. It was probably within the first year to 2 years. They mounted this expedition. They wanted to meet this new king who had been born the night the star shone. And hey, Leslie, I didn't even see you there. Good night, Scotty. Bravo on another fascinating show. I need to hit the hay. You go have a nice night's sleep, Leslie. Good to have you here. And hey, mechanics, I see you too. So we've got we've only got about 3 minutes left. I do want to mention that I think, remember the Magi, it says when they came, they went to Herod. And they said, we heard the new king is born. And Herod's like, oh, well, when you find him, come back to me, report where you found him so I can go worship him too. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Remember, at this point, Herod had killed his son, his wife. Herod was a paranoid, murderous tyrant trying to maintain what he believed it was his control. And the Bible was pretty clear in the biblical story. His intent was not anything to do with wanting to worship, but to murder the baby that would be taking his place. How dare this child be somebody that... And this is why Herod had said he sent out a decree that all baby boys beneath the age of 4 were to be killed. Why 4? If the Magi came on the night up. I think this happened a little later, and Herod's just covering his bases, and he wants to make sure he gets them. So he has all the babies killed. But what happens? Mary and Joseph flee to Egypt. And you can go to the Jewish quarter in Cairo today, and you can see the house that has been there, they say, for 2,000 years. And there's a church that has been there. There's been a church for 1,800 years. 1,800 years. I went to a church that was 42 years old. So it's almost 2,000 years old. But that it's there in the old section of Cairo. And that they believe that this tradition exists. And one of my seminary professors, who is an archaeologist and a historian, said, I don't see any reason to doubt the veracity of that. It's been carried down through the ages. There's a reason they believe this. So it's interesting. That's why they fled to Egypt, to escape the wrath of Herod. So Herod the Great was going to put to death all the babies. So I believe when the biblical account says that these Magi got a dream from an angel of the Lord that said, don't go home the way you came. Don't stop and visit King Herod. Go home another way. Why did he tell them that? The angel tell them that? Because according to the story, did not want to relay the information to Herod. And that gave, of course, the family, Joseph, Mary, and Jesus, time to flee to Jerusalem or to Cairo, where they lived for a number of years. Joseph plied his carpentry trade. And there's nothing that says Joseph ever came back, by the way, from Egypt. I don't think. Yeah, there is, because of the scene in the temple when Jesus was 12. They went for Passover when Jesus was 12. They couldn't find him anywhere. Joseph and Mary are looking for him. And that's his famous, well, didn't you know I would be about my Father's business? And he's talking with the rabbis in the temple. So, folks, that's the Magi. There's still, believe it or not, even a lot more to the story, a lot more to decipher. But that's all the time we've got for our radio audience. So we're going to get out of here for radio. Guys, thank you for being here over on the radio station. We're going to get out and we're going to join us over in the captain's cabin on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. Live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid Radio Broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here. Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
I miss you, Dave. Hey, welcome back to the Captain's Cabin. R. Good to have you all here. Glad that you made it in, and hope you enjoyed tonight's show. There's more like that to come. I love this topic. You can see I love the topic of history. I think history is so eye-opening. We get this bad history gets a bad rap, especially amongst kids. History, it's dates and it's numbers. You know what? The numbers and the dates, they come and go in your mind. You remember the significant ones. You remember the century or the decade. But I think it's all the love of history really is rooted in how it's taught. I had a wonderful man, but a horrible history teacher. He was a mathematician. They used him in the Christian high school where I went to also teach history, doubled up his topics, saved money probably, which was necessary. And he taught history, but he was, sorry, Mr. McLean, ultimately very boring. He did not make history exciting. He would stand with his foot on a chair and his elbow on his knee and read out of history, read the syllabus, basically. And nothing against the man personally, wonderful man. I've liked him. I've encountered him a few times in post high school days. He's got to be probably, God, he was probably, I don't know if he was a seminary student at the time or not, but he probably, when I was 15, 16, 17, he was probably close to 30, which would make him probably closer to 80 right now, 75 to 80. 70 at the most, at the earliest. But he reminds me of my picture of him in my head. He was kind of a redhead. He reminds me of, if anybody knows who Tom Shalhoub is, from, you see him on Fox News or the Gutfeld show. He does the Joe Biden impersonation in some of his little videos. And yeah, he's kind of fun. That's who he reminds me of, just to put a picture in your head. But the way it's taught, and by the way, I bumped into him when we were doing historical reenacting with the red-coated Highland Regiment, kilted redcoats. And he came with some students of his, or his family, I can't remember which, but we bumped into him, and I said, Mr. McLean, I know you. And he said, call me Steve, because we were all adults at this time. I was in my 40s. And he didn't seem to be much older than 50, 55 at the time. So he's got to be 70 now. But which ain't old anymore. I'm coming to believe more and more the closer I get to it. So my point being is that history, if it's taught well, I think, now he didn't teach history well. He taught us what we needed to know to pass a test. I would make a great history teacher, I think. I would love to be a history teacher. You put me in front of a bunch of students, to teach history, I would teach high school to college age history. I think I'd be very good at it. Hey, Sam, are you coming on? I don't see him. I don't know if he's coming on or not. I was wondering that earlier, and I didn't check when we came back in. I don't see the last comment he made. I'm scrolling back. Sam, if you're still out there, come on. Come on. Come on in. Here, I will. I'll actually post the link into the chat room, and whoever needs it there can't see it in the description. There it is. It's now posted to the chat room. And so, I don't think so, Sarah. I think you're going to be the first one in. And you don't have to come in if you don't want to. I just think you'd be the first one. So, yeah, there you go. So, I was looking really pasty and pale these days. I haven't been in the sun since August. And so my daughter had some of this toner. It's like a clear gel. Should try this. And I put a little bit on. And it's turned all my blemishes dark. Look at this. Look at these spots. Is that age spots? I got one little mole there, and it turned it just super dark. And it looks like I have freckles here now. I was just noticing that. I got that. That's always been there. I had a blemish there for, I don't even know what it is. It's like a skin tag or something. I don't even know if that's what it is. That's been there for 20 or more years. And it turns it dark because I use that stuff. You can probably see it on my forehead. But then it turned like the tips of the roots of my hair bronzy. And I said, oh, not using that anymore. So anyway, I just noticed that because I see it moving around in the video. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Scotty.
How you doing?
It's Monday.
All right. Oh, I see Sam. Hang on there, Sam. Yeah, it's Monday. All right. Let me get rid of this marquee, boom, or proscenium, whatever you want to call it. Sam.
Hey.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right.
All right. What's shaking?
Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Hanging out, listening in.
All right. I'm glad you did. Sarah asked about you, so I think you have a fan out there. So.
I'm sure.
Right, Sarah?
Sure.
There you go.
Well, I enjoy Sam's opinions, so.
Yes, Sam's got great opinions. He's smarter than I thought he was.
Sometimes.
And here is Jason Patrick. All right, all dressed up in his. Now.
Still in my work clothes. Never got out of them.
We learned in the Marine Corps, this was not a salute. It came here. Now you were doing that just to be casual. I know you were making a point of it, but we were always the thumb. The thumb they taught you, it goes this way, and snap it up.
Oh yeah.
And you didn't curve it off. You didn't go, oh shit it. Oh wow.
Well, see
the karate off your salutes.
The bad thing is I had 11 years of developing all the wonderful bad habits of a warrant officer. So, yeah, whatever.
I had a drill instructor that became my friend once I was being sent home for my broken back issue.
Yeah.
And it took him a few weeks to get me sent home. And I don't know why, but it did. And I would see him, and of course, you don't salute enlisted men. You don't.
You don't salute non-coms.
He was a staff sergeant, and so I would give him the Romulan salute when nobody was looking. He'd walk by, and I'd go, "Saw," and he'd say, "Don't do that." So, and he's the one who, after I was home for about 6 months, I got a call on my recording machine. My messenger, Sam, you're too young to remember those, I think. But the phone recorders connected to your phone. Beep. You have 8 messages.
A literal answering machine.
Yes. And that was the sophisticated ones had the voice. You have 8 messages. And I play them. And I heard this one, and it pauses. And he goes, yeah, you know who this is. He goes, You will call me back at the number I'm about to leave you, or you will drop and give me 50. And he says, Staff Sergeant Matt Pisani, and you will call me. I'm in Boston. Bye. It was like, so I called him up, and it was a blue streak swear fest when we were talking, you know. How the fuck are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. And he wanted me to do some artwork for him.
Yeah.
I did I mentioned this before. I did the Ghostbusters logo,
Mm-hmm.
the original Ghostbusters movie, the circle with the slash and the little ghost in it. Well,
Yeah.
he wanted me to use that and put a Rusky fur hat on it with a star and call it Commie Busters.
Oh, Lord.
And he did this. This is now, mind you, this is in the mid 1980s. This is Reagan era military, and he sold those in the PX like there was no tomorrow. So I did the art. Then we had one where he's carrying a sorry, Sarah, you're not an Islamic terrorist, but you are Muslim. An Islamic terrorist there was an American eagle carrying him by the butt, and he's got the head, not the turban, what do we call the headpiece? And it said, "We don't take no Shiite." Was one of the
Jesus.
other ones I did for him. So, and I mean, no offense to you, sir, at all. I know you probably don't support any of that, the extremism, but that's what he was doing. And so we did a couple of others, and I don't remember what they were. But
Yeah.
so yeah, drill instructor saluting. That's what we were talking about. Oh, and he invited me to come out to Boston, where he lived, and he says, "Yeah, come on out to Boston." He says, "I'll take you around, show you all the historical shit and junk." I go, "Cool. How can I resist that?"
All the historical shit and junk.
Yeah.
It's a technical
so we went
term.
to Lexington and Concord, and we went to Faneuil Hall and all those places in Boston. It was pretty cool.
Did you say Faneuil Hall?
Faneuil Hall.
Ah, that's where Fallout 4 started crashing on me
Where who what?
earlier this evening.
Faneuil Hall this evening?
If you've ever heard of the game series Fallout,
Oh. Okay.
so Fallout 4 is all in like the Massachusetts area. And so one of the places that you have to go to complete a task, is Faneuil Hall. Yeah.
There's no coincidence, folks. There's a reason for this. What do you think, Sarah? What's the reason? What's the purpose of this convergence of Faneuil Hall with Faneuil Hall?
Well, I mean, Fallout isn't that like a zombie game?
No, it's a post-apocalyptic, post global nuclear war game. Now, are there zombie-like characters in it because of all of the radiation, etc.? Yes, but it's more like a lot of mutants and scattered survivors and
Nice.
different factions trying to rebuild the U.S. where it takes place. So.
It sounds like what Professor Bauer calls build the future.
I have no idea. Oh, by the way, Jason, you look like somebody out of Mad Men. You ever watch that series?
Yeah, a little bit. I honestly, I couldn't get too far into it. It's just...
I loved that series. You look like Don Draper without his suit coat, working late one night on an ad campaign.
Yeah.
Ad agencies in the 60s. That's what that show was about.
Though I don't know how many of them had a beard, but...
Not many. Only the young Turks, the young hippie Turks, that were forced to wear suits to work because they worked in an ad agency in New York. Did you ever see that show, Sarah?
Sorry, I missed that.
Did you ever see Mad Men?
Yeah.
Loved that series. So
yeah.
I'm Don Draper, only nicer.
I'm growing my beard out of necessity, Scotty.
Oh,
yeah.
Is it getting cold? You gonna go bear hunting in the mountains, or?
No. Walk to my car from the office. Walk to the office from my car. When it's -40.
Ah, yes. But does a beard really keep your face warm? I've had a beard in the cold.
It keeps
and I still
everything
feel
from
shit
here
when it's 30
down.
below. I'm not like, oh, I'm so warm and toasty. Let's go down to 50 below. No, you just breathe out and your breath forms ice on your facial hair.
You get icicles, yeah.
Yes,
Oh yeah.
that's it.
I need to find someplace warmer.
Yes. I should mention, I was going to mention this before. You see that? See that?
Barely.
Big fella? Here, let's see.
Because all the
This is the Patriot propaganda wear. I got my own shirts from it. That's the diplomacy over supremacy. Truth bombs being dropped from the old B-52. And it says, at the top it says bombs away somewhere. There it is.
oh Lord.
So there's that one. So that's one of them. But I brought the rest. I got 3 more of them here. We did, of course, the Trump shirt. I did this as he asked the guy I'm doing this for. He said, "Can you do Trump as a superhero?" And I said, "Sure." Sorry, Sarah, and anybody else who's not a big Trump fan. We conservatives that want Trump in saw him as a superhero. So I did this one. So that is.
Oh Lord.
So we did the return. Now this was done like back in April, and what we were starting to do was going to be, it's the summer of Don versus Ron. It was going to be Don and Ron DeSantis. And that's kind of changed a little bit, hasn't it? Because the Ron DeSantis shirt, Ron has kind of not done as well as we thought he might, but there he is. That's how we did Ron DeSantis. Right there. Oh yeah, truth, justice, and the Florida way.
Have you heard anything about Doug Burgum and where he's standing in things?
No, so he's standing about where I recognize his name. No, probably nowhere.
Doug Burgum is the governor of North Dakota, but he decided to throw his hat in to run for president, and he was at the debates.
And you go, why?
Well, I got to tell you,
the reason they do it is it gives them political gravitas later on, whether they 1% or not.
Right. Maybe they'll get into a cabinet position or something. Maybe. But that guy, it's so interesting. So back when I was involved with some of the folks in the community who were trying to keep that Chinese company that I'd mentioned before for setting up shop 12 miles from the base. When all of that was going on, we were appealing to the state level government to, hey, look, step in and intervene. City council's not getting it. The Economic Development Corporation here is not getting it. Like, these guys are going to bring, a company that has direct ties to the CCP through the owner and CEO, and like it was like crickets out of Burgum's office. And then when finally we got things involved at the federal level, and we started getting federal pressure, and we started getting federal pressure from the congressional side through our senators. Doug Burgum makes the statement of, well, I hope this all gets resolved soon, and we can get on to doing whatever. Like, there was nothing, right? Like, it was very generic, very kid glove, tiptoe around things, right? And then I'm watching the debates, and Burgum's like, we got to be tough on China. We can't let them do all this. We can't do that. We can't. And I'm like, where were you 8 months ago, dude? Like,
yep. Why weren't you telling the president of the United States, I'm going to shoot down that Chinese balloon that's passing over our airspace? So,
well, that's a fun one, right?
Yep.
Because everybody sits there and like, look, Don't get me wrong. I'm not a huge fan of Biden or anything like that. But everything, leadership's one of those funny things. Everything positive that happens, it happens under your watch. It's something you did. Everything negative that happens is something you did.
And then see my twist on that is the people that don't know how to govern are probably the ones that, everything bad happens, and when same stuff happens under the other guys, they just take care of business.
Right. Or it gets presented a different way, or there's we're focused elsewhere. But so everybody gives Biden crap about not shooting down the balloons, right? And it's like, does anybody out there realize or understand? Yes, there was a balloon launched by the CCP traveling over our country. Pretty sure it was collecting, but the amount of data that we could glean by observing it, sending aircraft up to observe it, observing whatever signals are being transmitted from the balloon and things like nobody wants to look at the awesome side for us by doing that, because all of the information we can gather on their capabilities.
I get that.
And it's like, you know what? Let's keep watching this. And then once it gets to a certain point, we'll just be like, yeah, check it out. We shot your balloon down with like a $3 million missile.
Let's let it go from Washington State down to the northern tip of Florida before we take it out, though.
Yeah.
We've seen enough now. Let's traverse the whole country.
It's just interesting though, like how that kind of sort of thing happens, where you have no one looks at the other side of the coin, right? Or if they do, they gloss over it,
It's bias and spin. It's bias.
What's that, Sarah?
It's bias and spin.
Sure,
yes, of course. It's
my
just,
biases.
Yeah, we all do.
You guys got a take on that balloon? You seeing what's going on? Are you reading where it's going? Okay, we're good. We got it. Bring that fucker down.
Yeah,
that would have been my take. And so that's just me, though. Pardon my French.
Oh, man, no. I mean,
I'll show one of the other shirts. This is one of the other ones I did for us for Patriot Propaganda.
Oh, I like that.
For God and Country. And that was a fun one to do. And we got one more, which is just the logo. So the logo on the shirt. Patriot Propaganda. And so then we got a couple of other shirts. We did one of Texas Attorney General. Why am I slipping on his name all of a sudden? Attorney General of Texas. I did a drawing of him as a superhero. I'm going blank for some reason. We did that one. We did another one for an influencer. We're going to do one of Carrie Lake this week. I don't see her as presidential material. Not that she couldn't do the job. I just wouldn't vote for her. The only way I'd vote for Carrie Lake is if she was the only conservative running against Biden. I can't believe they're running Biden. I just can't believe they're running Biden. I can and I can't. I understand why they are, because they don't need him to do anything, because he's not the one in charge even now. So
I've long said that if people want change, put me into office. Now, I'll be assassinated in my first term.
My first month, I'll be out.
But there will be a lot of change. I have no problem walking into to Congress when it's time for the State of the Union, dressed as Negan with Lucille on my shoulder and telling the entirety of them, I will shut this shit down.
Yep. See, now I think that would be classic. Baseball bat with nails in it.
Slam right on the podium. You guys are a bunch of children.
Could you imagine Professor Bauer doing a filibuster?
Yes.
Jesus Christ. And then the the various different kinds of
yes.
No, he's still talking. He hasn't stopped. The filibuster's not done. Oh my God.
You don't know how controlled a president is. Even Donald Trump. Now you look at Trump. He was, I think, a pure renegade when it came to doing things. If somebody probably tried to tell him you can't do that, we're not going to let you do that, he'd probably say, yeah, yeah. Look into my eye.
Okay.
And I think that's why he's going through what he's going through right now. But
yeah, probably.
Everybody, I think I have imagined myself being president. Trust me, on various occasions. And I would certainly, Rocky Stucci and I used to joke around about it on his show a lot. And it was going to be, he was running for president. I was going to be his vice president. And I could come out, during the campaign and approach the podium and go, hey, everybody, shut up. Rocky's in the room. And, so I would love to see a president give people a little shit. You don't have to be pristine, and you do what you need to do to get the job done.
Yeah.
You carry off the office well. You're professional, but saying the word shit every now and then, or God damn it, is going to work. It's like the one example I've used a couple of times. Remember when Jesse Ventura, who I did not vote for, but who was running for the governor of Minnesota. Back, we're talking almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And the 90s. And he was running, and I saw a news clip of him, and he's walking through the crowd in Eveleth, Minnesota, way up north here. And crowds of people on the street, and they're following him, and they're all waving and stuff. And some guy yells out and is heckling him from the crowd. And this was the whole story was on this. Somebody's heckling him, and he turns around and goes, yeah, well, I don't need your vote, asshole. And I said, yes. I said, that just about won my vote right there. I don't care what he stands for. The fact that he would say that said to me, here's a guy that's going to be honest with me. So, I see.
I just wish people. I wish people would call out the. I wish people would call out the press secretary people.
Yes.
And do it bluntly. Just be like, all right, look, stop tap dancing around the answer, you piece of shit, and just tell us.
It's like I watch these little video clips.
It's all on open source. Just friggin' do it, man.
I saw a couple of video clips on YouTube. I was just passing some time. I was working, and it says, Kareem Jean-Pierre gets wasted by a reporter. And I thought, oh, what's that about? And I'm watching, showing all these clips of her getting absolutely dismantled by reporters.
Yeah.
And the bullshit she says is bullshit.
Right.
And it's like, you look at that and you go, that's your answer?
Evidently.
And some of these, I think reporters they fear getting their passes pulled or something, because it's like, why don't you ask her why? Ask her, well, what exactly were the president's actions that led to this XYZ thing? We all know he didn't do fucking squat. So what are you talking about? Yeah. And you'd like to say to the press secretary, you'd like to see somebody, the way she talks to the reporters, yes, there has to be some decorum and some, I understand there has to be civility, but I want a reporter to say to her, hey, remember, we pay your salary, dumbass. Don't talk to me that way. Don't talk down to me because I'm asking you a question you don't want to answer. And there's so much deferring of, I don't know how, obviously somebody who was a bright person, bright enough to get the job, why she's in the job, because she's absolutely ineffective. She's lying through it. She's lying. There are things that she obviously says she's lying.
Well, she was hired to do a job. That's
to the higher ups, and the higher ups are the people who've sat on Congress for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
whether we like it or not. Those are the president. Yeah, the president makes a lot of choices. He has a lot of say in this and that and the other thing. The real problem is the Congress more than the president.
Yeah.
It's the people who have sat there and complain about this and that and the other thing, and this needs to change, but they've spent 25 years trying to change it and they haven't done jack shit.
Yeah.
There needs to be term limits on the Congress.
Beautiful example of Congress royally fucking somebody over. Bush Sr.
Yes.
When he was running, read my lips, no new taxes. And then what did Congress do when it was like, dude, they're invading Kuwait and we need to take care of this? Well, we'll authorize this, but you've got to sign this new tax into being. And you know what? He did the right thing.
Yeah.
He did the absolute right thing. And from what I understand, it's like, I knew he's like, I knew it cost me getting reelected right then and there, but it was the right thing to do. And that shows a lot of integrity.
I think it does.
Yeah. But people don't recognize that kind of stuff anymore. I want to clone the Gipper and bring the Gipper back. That's what I want. I want a statesman. I want someone who is an eloquent speaker, well read and well written, has great hair.
Well, you're talking about Gavin Newsom there.
The guy. I want a president that, like 6 months to a year after surviving an assassination attempt where he gets shot, is giving a speech in another country and someone pops a balloon and the guy mid-speech says, "Missed me." And then continues right on.
That was Reagan.
That's what we need in office.
I've seen that clip recently. The guy shot, survives it, an assassination attempt. Here's a balloon pop, and he goes, "Oh, missed me." That was great.
Well, Junior dodging that shoe, I mean, he handled that pretty good.
Yep, he handled that pretty well, too.
He just gave it a duck and then looked back up. Like,
did you notice the entire time he just had this friendly, pleasant grin on his face? Like, just yeah.
Yep.
Like unflappable the whole time.
I would love to see a president, though, dodge the shoe and go, "Yeah, missed me." I'm sorry. I want that type of brutal honesty from somebody who can do it with class.
There is a visceral satisfaction that comes from when people get, as the kids would call it nowadays, the mic drop.
Yes.
Wait, do kids still call it that? Or is that, I don't know.
I haven't seen any substitute for that, but I got to tell you, when the whole mic drop thing started becoming, a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm a studio owner. I'm a musician.
I'm not going to drop a mic.
Okay.
Do you know how much that costs?
Right.
So, in fact, we go to great lengths to not drop them. What were you going to say, Sarah?
Yeah, you could see when Obama first did his mic drop. You see the audio visual department at that hotel going, don't drop that. Don't drop that. Oh.
And the accountant for the White House being like, "It's okay. We already have another one with us. Here you go.
It's a prop mic." So.
Well, gentlemen, I really enjoyed listening to all of your political views on this and that and who and where. And I found it extremely stimulating after the initial stimulation, which I thought I heard my call to join the show when somebody mentioned filibuster.
There it is. I knew it was coming. It's just a matter of time.
One of my policies with this show has always been the after show. Is if I drop below 10 viewers, which we're at 12 right now, down to 9 while somebody was talking, I went, I usually gauge it. If we're down to under 10 10 live viewers on the channel, it's not that people aren't out there seeing it. The numbers don't reflect everybody who's watching.
Right.
Like the people that have checked into the chat room. And I look at that and I went, oh, we're down to 9. I'm going to call it. I noticed that during the show too. When I saw it go down to 11 and it didn't quite go down to 10, I thought, oh, I'm doing a show that people aren't interested in because some nights we'll have active people in the chat room.
Yeah.
40, and that's a lot of people. They don't all talk, but they're all signed in.
Well,
Right.
Scotty, I'd like to offer or posit a different perspective on that.
Sure.
One of the things that we're all seeing is that content is like, it's a cacophony. It's just constantly coming. And there's more people with more shows and more stuff going on than there ever has been. And I think we're still at the beginning of it. Doing a live show, I mean, you've either got to pick your times and do your research and find the right slot for you amongst the ever crowded field of content to consume, or you just do it for the content. And think about the after views, because you're going to get more and more views than afterwards than you're going to get for the live show.
Oh, right.
So I would say that your average show views are around 200, over time.
Something like that, 200 to 300.
200 to 300.
More on some shows, less on others.
65
on some shows. Now, that's a couple days later, but
so the thing,
a couple of months, 6 months, and it's.
I mean, the easy metric to gauge the content consumption and the acceptance of it is to look at a piece of content over time. You've got to give it time for people to find it and then schedule it into the rest of their content consumption.
Right.
So the ones that get the most views and more people start sharing them are the ones with content that they really like and that they want to share.
Yes.
And that content is the key to whatever your, the quantity and the quality of your consumption is going to be. So I haven't done my podcast for a couple of years because I've been sitting back kind of marinating and looking at it all and watching it unfold. And the changes that are there now.
I have my doubts on that, Professor.
Well, I'm not talking about the quality of the content.
I don't think you've been sitting there, just watching and observing and not doing that's why you haven't been on your podcast. It's because you're going on everyone else's show and you're filibustering. and you're basically like, I'll just get them all, come look at me.
Yeah.
Who's this guy that's been talking forever on here? Like,
right. And the nice
let me
thing
go look him up.
Yeah. And the nice thing about it is that it's on somebody else's show with their audience.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So I'm kind of like, I like this freeloading kind of thing that I'm doing right now.
Yeah. That's a professor. He's kind of like, I came on and I know you're talking about this topic, but if we're going to get into the Ethereum of this,
time for me to just slide on in.
Weedism, then I'm going to just go on and I'm going to change the topic on you.
Hey, but but Scotty,
talk about it for 20 minutes.
And you're absolutely right. I'm guilty on all counts. But Scotty, I haven't heard the appreciation, and maybe it's because you're just not paying attention, of my not waiting to the last minute appearances.
I noticed that this was a very early in appearance. This was
because folks, if you didn't know it,
I'm actually worried about the professor.
The professor would come in 3 minutes before I'd already announced, hey folks, we're going to draw the show to a close. Bing, he pops up and starts another 20-minute conversation. And,
and I got to also say, aside from my, paying attention to your apparent lack of awareness and appreciation for my changing my habits on your behalf.
I abhor myself for that.
I'm also thinking about it, from the perspective that at least half of the shows in the last that have gone into the extended game, you started.
That's true. That's true.
And I thought to myself two things: either
Well, I
I've
blame you,
influenced,
though.
I've either influenced him poorly, or he's gotten used to it, and whether I show up or not, he's going to go ahead and do it.
Sometimes
So
when I know the conversation's really good is when I look up and it's 25 minutes since I should have ended the show and I didn't notice it.
that's right.
It's like
That's when you know.
it's like you throw out the notice that you're getting ready to wrap things up, and the professor's like, "I'll hold my beer."
Exactly. Oh no, you don't. He's saying
Incoming.
He thinks he's turning off the show. I got something for that. Ding!
By the
Hello.
I want to tell you, this is the worst time of day to drink one of these. And they have like one energy drink every 6 months. But I picked this up today. I've been feeling draggy lately. It's not
What is it?
blood sugar. Zoa energy drink. It's Dwayne the Rock Johnson's company. And so I saw it at the gas pump. And he's on the little screen talking about his Zoa stuff and what it's made out of and the natural shit in it and all of that. And so I thought I should try one of those because I don't like energy drinks for the
It's
most
not what you want, man. You don't want that. You don't want
I
that.
don't want it. That's the
Look,
thing. I want.
I'll tell you what you want. Here's what you
All right,
want.
you tell me what I want.
What you want is
Water.
no, not at all. Not at all. What you want is during
Special
is pre-surge, during surge, and post-surge citrus, non-sugar-free Rip It that you could get at the dining facilities in Iraq and fill your cargo pockets.
Yep.
It's
made out of local water.
no, I don't know what's in it, but it works and it tastes good.
It's the kind that makes your mouth go for about 2 hours from all the sugar.
No, nothing like that. But I'll tell you, the cans are like mini cans, and it's like the exact same size and weight of an M67 fragmentation grenade, and it's kind of beautiful.
And about as meaty, I'll bet.
The other one is Wild Tiger.
Wild Tiger.
Wild Tiger. The only place I ever saw it was in Iraq. Getting it from the local national market, because we usually have a little bazaar or a little market on the fob, and we got Wild Tiger, and you can find it every once in a while, and
Tiger.
That is the stuff. It's go on Amazon,
Thanks,
type
buddy.
in Wild Tiger. You can buy a case of it. It's like $45.
When JP was
Let me do
talking about the weight of that
Amazon.
can to a fragment grenade, for some reason that scene from the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom where he's sitting there pulling the sand out of the bag, for some reason that from that movie flashed through my mind, only it was him with a can of soda and a grenade.
Well, hold on, wait.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see it.
There we go. We'll go ahead and just do that.
Just do that. Yeah, there it is.
There it is.
Did you guys see the ad? Hold on. I got it here somewhere. Let's see if I've got it in the right format. Let's see. Let's go into this folder, then into my client folder. Let's go down to Jason. Are you not in here?
See what?
What the hell? Did I call it something else?
I have. What's he looking for, guys?
I'm looking for the ad.
Kennedy.
What did we call?
The one with the Black Rifle Coffee Company.
Yeah, where the heck is that? I don't have a folder with your name on it. But I did that for you. Where the heck did I put that? Does it
I have
have?
a context that's very. I have a folder with your name on.
Look, man, we're all thinking it. He's just saying it. What?
What's he saying?
He said, taken out of context, that sounds kind of bad. Yeah, man, I got a folder somewhere around here with your name on it.
A folder of you.
Yeah, a folder of you.
What else would we have called that ad? And why isn't it? Why didn't I file that in a folder for you? Did I put it? Hang on.
I know you sent it to me.
Once I find it. Jason Patrick. Let's just see if I filed it under. Oh, there it is. Where the heck is it? Pictures. I put it in the picture folder. I didn't even.
Each day.
Put it in a folder.
That's not very intuitive, but
put a picture in a folder with other pictures.
I can see why you wouldn't think about looking there.
Yeah, really. Just my general pictures, It's where I put like meme shots I want to post, or just throw them in the morgue file. So where's my Jason stuff? The morgue file.
Sarah, are you still there?
I'm here. I was just trying to look at the nutritional label, and I mean, to me, it doesn't look actually too bad. But I'm trying to figure out. What the active ingredient
I got the can. I'll share that with you.
No, but what is it that in it that's making the energy part? So I can't.
I don't know. I'll find out. Just a second. Hold on.
Placebo effect.
Yeah.
Is there GABA?
Only 3 grams of carbs. So I mean, that's not it.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good.
Save as. I'm saving this as a PDF, so we can actually put it on the show.
Uh-oh.
Boom.
Okay. I mean, boom. Even still, especially you, Scotty, you got to be careful with these things because it's the heart.
I know. All I was going to say about it, the reason I drank it, I was feeling draggy today, and I couldn't figure out why I was so draggy. It wasn't my blood sugar. It wasn't my joints are all sore and my leg muscles hurt. I'm like, why are my muscles all hurt? I didn't do anything. And I thought maybe that's why they hurt.
Are there a lot of B vitamins in it? Maybe.
I don't know.
Like B12, B6.
An hour before the show.
I mean, it's saying 100%, but that can't be
my
right.
eyes were open all the way.
Niacin and B vitamins. So
here, hold on. I'm talking
it's
while
like getting a B12 shot. So.
Yeah,
that'll put a bee in your butt.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Pun intended. Let's see, where is he?
Just real quick, Jason, guy, the Bergam.
Yeah.
Bergam. Yeah, he dropped out today.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Here, let's see.
Suspended his campaign, apparently. So.
And I was like, so.
Well, if he suspended his campaign to focus on North Dakota, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, the typical line. I've ended my campaign to focus on my state. It's like, yeah. Sorry. Shouldn't do that on the radio.
I mean, you have to have a minimum 2 things. We were talking about Reagan and Bush Jr. and Sr. earlier. But if you looked at the characteristics of people who run for office and then get...
I have it pulled up.
Oh, you do? Okay.
And then get the office and end up with the authority, responsibility, and all that shit that comes with it.
Yeah.
You gotta really like the that whole experience. I mean,
Jesus.
Fortune and light roast, kid. Fortune and light roast.
That's sweet. Very nice.
Yes.
Yeah, he did a really good job with it.
He made a great hat there too. So
I'm trying to remember if that's my hat or if that's the one of my ones from. Not one of my ones, the only one that I have from Barron's.
I have no idea. I don't remember if you told me whether or not. I thought that was promoting your hat, though, is what you were using it for, is what I thought. So
I really like the rim on that hat.
Yes.
Yeah.
That thin,
Yep.
No embroidered, just a nice piece of material.
Well, as soon as I finish his new logo, he's making one for me.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
See, now this is a head that only wears penman hats, and I will wear a Patrick hat. Whatever, I can't remember what the name's going to be. It's in an email somewhere. So.
Yeah,
If it's
that
good.
may have been that one that I made, and then before I trimmed its brim down, though. There was one that I made that felt the brim was too long, and then I trimmed it down. I don't know. I can't remember which one I was wearing in that picture. I have too many hats.
That's what Sam was talking about.
Yeah.
Elvis says, Scotty, are you ready for below zero weather? No, I don't like below zero weather. I'm not a big winter guy. And you go, why'd you live for 60 years in Minnesota and Wisconsin? Well, because I didn't get to move. I can't move. I'm stuck here. And,
I moved
below zero weather.
It's like gulag.
There,
there you go.
That'll get you out to the car.
Yep.
I moved to Chicago from Southern California, where I was born and raised, in '85, and it was not only a cultural shock, but it was an environmental shock.
Yes.
I mean, that whole cold. I'm in the swing too. You'd be 100 degrees below zero in the winter, 100 plus degrees with humidity in the 80-90% range.
Yep.
And just be miserable.
You said in Chicago getting 100 below?
Well, you get the wind chills in the 50s and 60s on some really bad ones.
75 is the deepest wind chill I experienced in Minnesota. That was in my seminary days.
I think it's something like that out here. 65, 75, neck below.
Yeah.
So I had my taste of that great northern place that people who have been born and raised there all rave about for the most part.
Yeah.
But that was not my kind of geo.
I love Minnesota, Wisconsin. I just don't like the dead of winter. And when you think about it, it's really only a few weeks, but still.
A few weeks. I lived in Chicago for 9 years, and I remember getting up at 4 a.m. to shovel my 100-foot asphalt driveway so that I could get the car out of the garage and out of
the driveway. Need a snowblower.
But the nice thing about Chicago and the whole winter thing is the whole city's laid out on basically a grid. You can say, 119th and Baker, and everybody they'll know exactly where that is because that's the way the roads are when you get into Chicago. Outside of it, it gets a little squirrely, but that was the only nice thing when it was a lot of snow was because it was flat and square, the dozers could come in and just clear it out quick.
Yeah.
And
zoom.
And we
lost Jason.
So
there he is.
Yeah, I had enough of that.
Yeah. Claudette says, welcome to Weather in Ontario. Hey, I want to ask Claudette, I've got this theory. If it gets down to 70 below in Minneapolis, which is 2/3 down the state, almost 3/4 down the state from the Canadian border, you go up to the Canadian border and another couple of hours up to Ontario or to Winnipeg. You figure it's got to be even colder up there. Now we see our weather comes in from the west. If you're looking at my camera, comes in from the west and sweeps northwest, sweeps down over Minnesota. And I figure maybe it's that swath here. If you go north of that, it's warmer. I don't know. Are you getting some kind of weird Arctic blast come in? And then what's Winnipeg like? Are you in Winnipeg or just in Ontario? Claudette. So You got to figure
Winnipeg.
Canada's cold. Coo, 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 coo. Hey.
I hear Winnipeg has a really nice international food scene. If you're into
I went to
food
once. We were
actually, I'm like 2.5 hours from there. I haven't been yet.
We were camping on Dogtooth Lake, which is one of those off lakes in northern Minnesota, the little knob in Minnesota that sticks up on in the Boundary Waters canoe area, and Lake of the Woods up there. And we drove from there and went to Winnipeg, and we did it in a day, there and back. We thought, so it's not that far north of Minnesota. She's north of Toronto.
Yeah.
Okay. You're about 1,500 miles east of Winnipeg, which makes
you the weirdest thing ever, though, was when I was at Drum. When I was at Fort Drum, we were 31 miles from the Canadian border there, and it was about like a hour or so into Kingston.
Yeah.
And Kingston is like the cleanest city I have ever seen in my life. Like, disturbingly clean. Like, there wasn't even a gum stain on the pavement. It was like...
Canada's huge.
Cleveland, you said?
Eh?
Say again?
Did you say Cleveland?
No. Kingston.
Kingston.
Kingston, Ontario.
Okay.
Yeah. Kingston, Ontario. I was up there walking around, and I'm just like... there is nothing on this on the pavement. This is weird. No oil spots, no gum stains.
I like Toronto. When I lived in Detroit, we took the train up to Toronto. Casalama, I remember. We visited Casalama in Toronto. That was a pretty cool place. I could have lived there. It's a big castle in Toronto. Great restaurant scene. Spent way too much money.
So since I missed the
I hear there's really good poutine.
Since I missed the first part, the show was on the three wise men. Did you guys come to any conclusions?
Yeah, there's all kinds of
three wise guys,
third century, early church fathers that write about it, and we're out of time, so we're not getting into it now. It's after 11, but I think there's a lot of stuff that was made up about it by the church fathers. You could use it. You've been in ministry, professor. You could use it as an illustration. And the three wise men, why they could represent the Trinity for this reason and that reason and that reason. And Balthazar represented Melchior, represented this guy. And well, of course, all of those are fictional names. They're never told those names in the scripture. It's all made up later. So a lot of made up stuff about it. Was it symbolic? Was it real? Was it a literal story? If it literally took place, my conclusion is that it was a bunch of there's one interpretation of the word Magi that comes out as sky seekers. They were sky seekers, and a legitimate interpretation of the word in scriptural interpretation. Sky seekers.
So astrologers.
They were astrologers. They were guys that knew of the prophecies because the Jews, they had all of Israel held captive for 500 years earlier. And they knew some of this stuff. It was part of their literature, probably. And these guys were looking at the sky. They saw the star. We didn't deal with what the star was. We can do that another time. But they're looking at the sky and they're going, hey, what's that old thing we remember when the Jews were here? No. Well, that was 450 years ago, so maybe you won't remember it. But it's written down somewhere. And I think they just traveled. They were astrologers. They became kings. We three kings of Oriantar. And where's Oriantar? So was the first question we asked tonight.
When I first heard that, I thought we three kings of Orient are being.
Well, that's what you know when
Oriental
you know
or Eastern.
You know what Orient is. When I was a kid, we thought it was Orientar. Where's Orientar? Cool, the three kings from Orientar. So,
well,
but
to get to Orientar, you have to cross the mountains that burn, past the rock that looks like a long neck.
One does not simply walk into
Mordor.
So
yeah,
Sean Bean, has that guy died anymore? Has anybody else died in a movie and a TV series or anything like that more than him?
Yeah, from heroic deaths to nasty bad guy, good, I'm glad he died deaths. You know.
I wonder if that's like in his contract. If he's like, okay, I'm going to play this character, but you have to kill me.
I have to die.
I have to be killed. So the summation was that it's basically something that may have some relation,
some historical efficacy,
something that actually there may be components in it that are tied to some actual story that is true. But
I think
you're suggesting that it's been piled on and used and
piled on and exactly. And I made the point at the beginning of the show, which is a point I've made before, is I believe the Bible has efficacious history, even for those who say, oh, it's a bunch of fantasy and fake bullshit. And I go, no, it's not. There's been too much of the Bible that has been verified archaeologically, evidentiary. You can't prove there's a heaven and hell and therefore a faith. You can't prove there's a God. You can prove, however, that the events that these faith stories are wrapped around did happen.
There's been, I think, at least a dozen findings in the last 100 years.
Oh, in the last couple of years
that were referenced in the scriptures, but everybody thought was some mythical place or some.
I use the example of Pontius Pilate, his cornerstone found in Caesarea Philippi. 1964.
I was just really
1964. What's that?
I was really disappointed to find out that Canis wasn't buried in sand dunes.
Yeah.
That was Will of Souls.
Yeah, it's not buried in sand dunes.
Yeah. But I have to bid you all a good evening. I have
good evening
a training exercise tomorrow.
Evening to each other.
Training exercise. Now, is it a training exercise like dressing fatigues, or is it a business training exercise?
No, it's not dressing in fatigues. Our mid group is doing basically training scenarios where oh hey, we have a outbreak of whatever food poisoning or whatever, and so basically just testing the people to make sure that they're going through all the processes right. And I got fingered to be a role player. So
you got what?
Yeah,
you can't say that on here.
It's all a file.
Oh, that was just wrong.
Oh. It's okay. We only have 7 listeners left, so we only hit 7 people. But tomorrow there'll be 200 people going, oh, Jason.
Look throughout the day
just to wash that thought out of your mind.
Yeah, great. Now that I've said that, every time I come into the chat room, it's going to be like, oh, hey, did you get fingered?
Last night? How about earlier today?
Hey, it looks like Fingers is here.
Some coffee.
Well, there you go.
Fortune and Fingers, kid. Fortune and Fingers.
Oh, God.
All right. I'll send you on your way, Jason.
All right. Nice, you guys have fun.
See you.
I will catch up with you guys later. Bye.
Jason.
All right. Professor, you're out of here too. Good to see you, brother. Oh, did I cut you off mid-sentence? God damn it. Sarah, good to see you too.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
You got to stop talking so much.
Just taking it all in.
Taking it all in. I'm just glad you're there. Bring some friends next time. Let's get them all up on here. And women have got to call in. We got to get a female point of view in here. So.
Yeah, I don't think I count as a woman anymore. I've been around you guys.
Yeah, you're one of the guys. Yeah. So, but, we're glad you're here. And you can represent the women contingent. You can be the face of the women's contingent of Intrepid Radio.
I'll leave that to Rainey.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Have a good night. And son, good to have you here. Glad you came in.
Fun.
So, what do I have? Oh, just on a personal note, I am sending that the 12 Apostles to my dad, your grandpa.
Okay.
And he said he asked if he could borrow it. So I'm sending him one of the red coats and that. And I thought, I'm telling you now because I'm not going to call you after the show. I'm tired. So
I need a him.
And it kind of ended up as kind of an accident. I was telling him about it. I said, "Oh, I got this baldric from Uncle Dave, his stuff," and he goes, "Oh, you're sending me that for Christmas?" He says, "Thanks." And he wasn't being funny. I think he misunderstood me, and then I was like, "Oh, I can't not send it to him now." And I'm okay with it. And he said, "Well, the good thing is you'll get it back soon." My dad's in his mid-80s. So you don't know him.
I wish you did. The dirt from him.
I want to go out there this next spring and paint a mural on his new. He built a new shop, just a little shop. Oh, here, right here. He sent a picture. He doesn't do the pictures online quite yet, but he built this little shack. Nice. Where his shop now, he's got the big shop, the big, pole barn, not pole barn, the big metal garage out there for his antique shop. But he built this for kind of a little front thing out on his property. And he wants me to come in and paint what you see yellow there, paint a mural on it and something up top too. And so I'm going to go out there in the spring and do that. Maybe you should come and visit with me. And cool. By the way, regarding he doesn't say anything about it in his letter. This is how he does it. He'll send me stuff like this with a letter on the back, and it's easier for him than doing the email. But then he sent me these. It's like
nice
present stickers. I think that's for his presents for Christmas. So it's kind of funny. So I'll use these when I send those things to him. So, but yeah, he wants to put them on mannequins.
Nice.
And then he wants to make some of those apostles.
That'd be cool.
Folks, if you don't know what 12 apostles are, I'll show you. Who else left here? We got 6 people left. For the 6 who are still here, I'll show you what we're talking about. I've got them over here on the hat rack. Now, this is a baldric. This is a sword belt. And it would go on like this. So, and then you would have a sword belt on here for a regular baldric. But this has what they call the 12 apostles on it. And those were powder horns that would hang for your muskets. And so Uncle Dave had made this. So my dad wanted to know if he could borrow it. And so I'm going to send that to him. And he says, "You'll get it back." So there it is. That's what that is. That's what we're talking about. All right. Lucky Stone was doing paperwork while listening to us. Oh, nice. Hope he didn't make any mistakes while listening to us. Claudette said we did a plane crash scenario a few years ago. Oh, boy. In the cold? Yikes. Oh, that's what Jason was talking about, some of that stuff. Mm-hmm. All right. Now we're done. We're done. We got to get out of here. Sam, I love you, son. I'll talk to you soon. Next week, the kids are going to Disney World. sisters.
Girls. Yeah.
And so they're gone all next week with them. So you should stop by. We should hang out a little bit. Just be me and Rainey here. Rainey and me for a week.
Oh,
no kids. Whatever.
What will you do with yourselves?
What will we do? So anyway, folks, maybe that'll be a project for our next show. You can come up with ideas for Rainey. We don't have no idea what to do without 3 kids here. So, all right, Sam, I love you. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Glad you were here. All right, everybody, let's get out of here. It's time. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for coming into this show and being part of it. And so we'll see you again on Wednesday. And until then, live long and prosper. Shalom.